Welcome to Grandma Rozann's kitchen, and today we're going to bake bread. But not just any old bread, not sandwich bread. We're going to make that artesian bread, that gorgeous round loaf with all the air holes in it that is so incredibly delicious. But this is the deal, you guys. This bread is the easiest bread I have ever made. Now, I'm making this bread especially this morning for some special people. Danielle, my daughter-in-law, who is home with three children, maybe there's another one coming, with 3 children and can't really get out, is going to be able to bake the bread. And I'm also doing this for Amy, who's our friend in Nebraska, and you know, I know she can't get out right now either with all we're having with the pandemic here. I'm also doing this for Adriana, who is my sweet gal that helps me with all my plants at the nursery. And I'm doing it for Judy, who I've never met. But Judy is a friend of my husband's, and they go all the way back to high school. And she said she wanted to learn how to make some different things. And then I'm also doing it for all those thousands of people like you that were like me that failed continually in baking bread. But now we have a foolproof method, so let's get to it. Before I started getting my ingredients together, and there's only 4 ingredients in here, so it's very, very simple. I put my oven to 200 degrees, and then what I did is I stuck the bowl in there, and I let it heat up because I want the bowl to be really warm. Do you have to do it? No, you don't. But does it give it an extra little punch in there to be able to activate the yeast a little quicker? Yeah, it does. Now, I'm going to be using a scale, so I'm going to be talking to you about grams. Don't stress. At the end of this, I'm going to give you cups and teaspoons so you'll be able to do it if you don't have a scale. When I bought the scale, I vacillated about it. I don't know that I even really need it, for heaven's sakes. How much would I use it? I use this thing constantly. I got it on Amazon. I think it was only like $15, so it was very, very inexpensive, but I use it all the time. When you're cooking, you can pretty well, throw in, change, do whatever. When you're baking, it's pretty darn precise. So with this, I'm able to be spot on time after time after time. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to use. So, first of all, what you want to do is you want to zero it out. You always want to get to 0 so that you know that you are starting at the right spot. Now, you put your bowl on. It's called Terra. You're going to zero that bowl out. So now you know that the weight of the flour and the other ingredients are what's going to matter in here. The bowl is insignificant. So what we want is 1,000 grams of flour. I use King Arthur bread flour because I believe it is really the best flour out there. However, we're in a critical stage in our country, as most of the world is right now, and we're isolated. We're not able to leave. So I don't have enough of this flour. So I'm going to combine this flour with gold medal bread flour. Now, typically I don't combine flours, but I'm going to need to do it on this one. So what we want is 1,000 grams. So I will dump all of this in, knowing it's not going to be enough. That's 600 grams right there. And then, and then I'm going to finish up with the rest of the flour here. I am going to incorporate this flour so that it is equal all the way through. I'm at 945, 950, 970, 997. 1,000 and a dash. Okay, so we're done with the flour, and I'm going to go ahead and mix that so it's all well incorporated. The 2 flours will hopefully do really well. I think they're going to be fine. I really do. If you're not familiar with this hook, it's really a nice hook, and it really helps with flour, with bread baking. Don't feel you have to have it, for heaven's sakes, you don't. But I got it on Amazon, really worked out well. All right, then what we're going to add is we're going to zero this out again, because we want to make sure that we have got everything here not incorporated into the next thing that we're going to give, and that's going to be salt. And what we need is 20 grams of salt. So as I'm adding this, that's 4, 8, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, 17, 18, 19, and 20. There, okay? And then we want yeast. Now, I buy yeast in bulk. I buy this at Costco. It's 2 pounds, you guys. And I know you would say, I will never use that much yeast. And you're right, up to a point, except that it freezes. So all I do is I open this up, I put it into a baggie, I use the small amount of yeast that I need, and then I freeze it. This bag has probably lasted me well over a year, and I still have a lot left in here. So what we need is 2 grams of yeast. So we have to zero this out again, and now we're going to come down for 2 grams. Do you see how easy it is when you're using a scale? There. Now what you want to be cognizant of is you want to separate your yeast from your salt. They don't really like each other. They're not friends. They're not buddies. So they kind of work against each other. So I put the salt on one side. I put the yeast on the other side. Now we're going to mix them because now they'll just get all incorporated into those 2 flours that we are using. I'll tell you, I'm really kind of anxious to see how the mixture of flour works out, simply because King Arthur flour is really good, but it's far more expensive than any other flour. So if the other flours work out, I just might continue to do it this way. You never know. All right, and then now we just need the water. And what I'm putting in here is 780 milliliters of water. It has to be between 85, 90 degrees. I don't ever check the temperature of it, because if you just stick your finger in it, and if it is warm enough that you would feed milk to a baby, it's perfect, all right? So, the whole thing goes in at one time, and then we start mixing. And now you're just going to get all of that water mixed into, let me get rid of my scale. All of that water gets mixed into that flour. This only takes a couple of minutes to do. And you want to scrape down your sides, just like that, okay? And you can use this little tool only so long, and then you're just going to have to get your hands in there. And I'm to the point of hands. There. And I know my dough is right, because right now it feels really warm, and that's the way it should feel to you as well. All right? Now, I have a handy-dandy little scraper here, which helps with this as well. Just like that. All right? Now I'm just making sure I'm getting all that all that flour that's at the bottom. I'm getting all of that incorporated. And I'm telling you right now, what I'm doing right now is the hardest and most difficult part of making the bread. What I'm doing right now, after this, it is so simple. So simple. Now I want to get those sides scraped down. There. And it's looking pretty good. I'm getting right there into not having, look at this, see? Almost all the flour is in there. Just a couple more turns. There, see how good that is? Now, if you'll take a look at this, it's so shaggy, and it's so sticky, and it's so yucky, you would think that will never make bread. Oh, but watch. So you plonk it back down in there, wipe your hands off. Okay. And you can just look at that bowl for a second, because I got to wash my hands off. This is such an easy recipe, and it is so delicious. I can't wait for you to see the finished product. And anybody can make this, anybody. All righty. Now what we're going to do is just wrap the top. I use a plastic wrap. Use whatever you want, but I like to keep that heat inside of there. Okay, so I do this. It's recommended also that you can just put it in a warm place in your kitchen and away from a draft, and it will be good. I got this wet, so that's not going to work. Hold on a second. My hands were wet. But I feel the more heat that you can keep in here, the better off you are. So I seal it up pretty darn good. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick it back into that oven. Now, that oven has been shut off. It is not at 200 degrees. As soon as I took the bowl out, I shut the oven off, but it's still warm. So, see how yucky that is? What we're going to do right now is just put it in the oven, and we're going to have it there for 20 minutes. All right, so I'm going to set the timer, and I will be back with you in 20 minutes, and we'll do the next step. In that 20 minutes, because this bread can actually take, 2 or 3 hours, okay? But you're not standing here for 3 hours. I'm going to go out and plant corn for that 20 minutes and get my garden going. So I will be back in 20 minutes. Now, being a woman of my word, I told you I would give you the grams in cups and teaspoons, so I want to do that for you. You need 7.5 cups of flour, 3.5 cups of water, 1 tablespoon of salt, and 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. It takes very little yeast, all right? Now, we have gone into our second rising here of 20 minutes. Now, take a look at this. See, it's starting to look not quite so shaggy. It's still sticky. See that? But it's not so shaggy. So now we're going to lift it and fold it. Lift it and fold it. The only thing you want to be careful of here is don't rip it. You don't want to rip the dough. So just lift and fold. And as you're doing this, you're going to start feeling the difference in the dough. It has more elasticity to it, and it's still very warm. It's alive. You're working with something that's alive right here. Now we're going to just do this again. Turn it at a quarter. Flop it over. Put the top on it. Pop it back in the oven. And we're going into our third turn. If you think this is hard, you guys, try making bread when you have to knead it for 15 minutes by hand. That's hard. This is all we're doing. This is the hardest part of this whole thing right now. Let me get over there, stick on there. Okay, so now it's going to be another 20 minutes, and then we will be back. All right, see you in a few. All right, what I have done is I took it out of the oven where obviously the oven is not on, and I've just done this now 4 times, all right? So each time we have lifted and we have folded over, and you see the consistency of this dough is wonderful. So it's 20 minutes each time, 4 times, and now we're to the next stage of doing this. What we want to do is we're going to form the dough. So I want the dough to be just, pretty even because I'm making 2 loaves. So I want the loaves to be about the same size. So what I'm doing is I'm scraping this out onto my counter. Just like that. And I'm going to cut it in half. Or what I hope to be close to half. And I'm going to weigh it. So we're going to zero this out. And I'm at 15.25 ounces. And this is lighter, I can tell already. That's 10. So I'm going to pull some of this guy off and plop it over here. That's 12 and an 8. It's 12 ounces. 13 and a quarter. That's 12 and 3/8. Do you have to be this exact? No. But this is just about equal now. If you don't have a scale, hold it in your hands, all right? You want them about the same because you're making 2 loaves of bread here. You want them to cook equally. But do they have to be exact? Absolutely not. Now what we're going to do is we're going to form them. Now this is an important part, so I want you kind of to pay close attention here. What you're going to do is you want to create a ball. And you're going to just roll it. I'm going to put a little bit of flour on here, very little, very, very, very little. You don't want to start incorporating flour at this stage. But you plop it down and you roll it. You roll it and you squeeze it. What you're doing is you're taking the top layer and moving it down under, just like this. You're tightening up that ball. You want it as tight as you can get it. Just like that. And you'll feel that ball smoothing out, but I'm putting the pressure, I'm taking it from here, and then I'm moving the pressure into here. So I'm bringing it back. Now not the palm, but the base of my hand is taking it down under. You'll be able to feel the difference in this. You really will. Now that it's a nice tight ball, we're going to be putting it into whatever we want to mold it into. Now I don't use these bowls to mold it, but my daughter-in-law has my baskets. So anyway, this is all I have. You can use anything. You can use baskets, you can use different forms, different shapes, whatever. But this is showing you what you do when your daughter-in-law took your stuff and you didn't get it back yet. Pop it in there. I'm going to cover both of these because I want them to be, again, a little airtight there. And then I would suggest that you put another towel or something over it. I've got an actual baking sheet that I use, so I'm going to pop that over because it's a little bit heavier. You want to keep it warm. You want to keep it away from any kind of draft. And you're going to let it rise, and now you're going to let it rise for an hour. Okay? So this is the form that I use. These are really nice if you ever want to get one of these. If you're going to make baguettes, you can make it with these. You just kind of crunch it up. It's got a lot of good uses, but it's a really heavy cloth. So there it goes. It's going to sit there for an hour. Now, if I don't address this, cameraman is going to have a fit because he keeps pointing to my fingernails. They're a mess, you guys, not because, but it's not by choice, but because we're all unable to leave our homes. I obviously can't go for a manicure. So this is the condition they're in. Can't help it. It is what it is, but considering what the world is going through, my fingernails are the least of my concerns, all right? So I'll be back in an hour and I will show you how this is raising, but this is important. The reason I'm not putting it in the oven is we need to kick that oven up to 475 degrees. It has to be scorching hot. So I'm going to kick it up now. It's going to have an hour at 475 degrees. Then when we pop that bread in, it is going to be amazing. But it's not just the oven that's going to be functioning at that. It's going to be the things we're cooking it as well. So I've got them over here. And you can use many different things to cook your bread in. This is an enamel cast iron, which is really, really nice to use. This is a clay pot, which again makes beautiful bread. I have my daughter-in-law has it right now, but I usually make one of the breads in a cast iron Dutch oven. All of them are really good. I have got a little French thing over there that I could show you, cost $100, not worth it. These I think are really, really good. So I'm going to put both of them in the oven. I'm going to kick that oven up to 475 degrees. And while this is coming up to temperature and getting those pots up to 475, that is going to be cooking for, or rising for an hour, all right? So I will be back in an hour and we will go from there, but we're really, really close to the end, and boy, is it gonna be delicious. See you in a bit. It's been a little bit over an hour and these have risen. So let's take a look at what we have underneath. They look good, you guys. They look really good. Look at this. There. Okay. So now what we're going to do is put a little bit of flour on parchment paper. This is an important step, okay? So I buy these pre-cut from Amazon, and they're really, really nice. They'll fit a half sheet, baking sheet, and then you can buy them in the roll too. You can buy parchment paper just in your grocery store. It's kind of harder to work with because it keeps wanting to roll up on you. These stay out very flat. So what we're going to do is flour this just a little bit, and you're going to see magic happen. If you can, use your cutter as much as you can. Try not to just totally destroy the bread. I'm just loosening it as much as I can. And then I'm going to turn it over onto here. Just got my hand up in there. Got it down. Okay, that one turned out just fine. I want to scoot it over a little bit. What we want to do is we want to score it. And the reason we're going to score it is because the steam has to escape somewhere. So if you don't cut it on the top, what happens is it'll escape from the side or places you really don't want it to come out. In the olden days, way back, when they had just commune ovens, brick ovens, people would score them, and that's how they knew that that was their bread. Well, we don't have to worry about that because it's all going to be your bread. So we're just going to give a good cut here and a good cut here. I have a little tool that does this, but I don't know that's all that good. And then some flour on the top. And I'm going to do the next one. The parchment is so important for you because now you're going to have to move this bread and put it into something that has been cooking at 475 degrees for the last hour. It is scorching hot, scorching hot. So you want to be very careful. And you also want to have your oven door closed as much as possible. You want to have it as much as possible. So I'm getting these as close as I can over here so that I can just grab them and drop them in. You're also going to want to spray. Now, when they do their wood-fired pizzas and that sort of thing in these restaurants, they have got sprayers that spray in there, and it creates a steam. The steam is what's really good for the bread. Very hot. And then you're going to take the bread and drop it in. Now, could you imagine doing that without parchment paper? You even imagine how difficult that would be? Put the lid back on. And we move over to the second one. And we will do the same thing here. And we're dropping that one. Ouch, that one in. Works better if you don't hit your leg. There. And the lid on. Now this is going to cook at that temperature for 30 minutes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the top, because what it's doing now, it's cooking the entire inside of the bread and making a soft crust on the top of the bread. The last 10 minutes, I'll remove the top, so it'll cook 30, then I remove the lids, then it'll cook another 10. That's where you get the crunch. That's where you get that thicker crust that's absolutely fantastic. So I'll be back in 30 minutes. All right, we've had the bread in for 30 minutes, and now we're going to take a look to see what's going on inside. Oh, cameraman, look at that, will ya? Okay, let me get past you. And let's see what this other pot did. Oh my goodness. Look at those. Aren't they beautiful? I don't think it's going to make any difference considering we used a different flour, but we'll see. Now we shut this and it's going to cook for another 10 minutes. So what that's doing is developing the outside crust. When it comes out, we have to let it cool. Do not cut it immediately and try to eat it. It's just not, you can't do that. It's going to get all mushy on you. So what you want to do is get a rack and you want to sit it on the rack. I've been using this rack simply because the lower racks, the cooling racks, are down here. I don't think there's really any air circulation. So when I got this, which is nothing more than a divider for a shelf, and I started using it as a cooling rack, and it's working absolutely fantastic. So I put the bread up here and I let it cool down. Now, in 10 minutes, I know that that is completely done. I have no problem because I've done it enough times. But if you're a little curious, you're not quite sure, how do I know? There's a couple of ways of knowing. If you hit the bread and it sounds hollow, it's done. If you need to be more precise than that, you take a thermometer and stick it in. Your bread is completely cooked at 190 degrees. But 30 and 10 is no fail, so I don't even check it. So I've got like another 8 minutes here, and then I'll come back, we'll pop them out, and you will see how nice it is to have that parchment paper. And don't worry about the parchment. It's not flammable. It's not going to catch on fire. Sometimes it'll singe around the sides. That's not a problem. But that's what it's designed to do. Okay? Do not use wax paper. It has to be parchment paper. All right, we will be back in a few minutes. Well, we have been very, very busy this morning making an amazing bread. So the last 10 minutes are for the crust, and let's take a look at what it has done. Just look at that, will you? Pretty amazing. So now what we're going to do is just dump it out. Now once again, I will become the spokesperson for parchment paper because this could have been really problematic of getting it out of there if you didn't have the parchment paper. But it came out so easy, so quick. And I will scoot that over there. Let's get the second one out. Let's see what that one did. Be careful, you guys, because these are really hot. Oh my goodness, look at that. Beautiful. Don't want to break my new pot. Okay. Now, what you are unable to see at this time through video is the amazing aroma that is through this entire house. We walked outside a little while ago because one of our neighbors came over and he said, "Good grief, what is that smell?" And we said, "Oh, we're baking bread." It is so good. Now, it's hollow. Can you hear that? It's hollow. We know it's done. So I'm going to let this cool down, and then the very end of it, what we're going to do is we're going to just come in and have a bite of it. So I'll be back in a little bit. Alrighty, so we have the bread which has cooled down They are beautiful, beautiful loaves of bread, and I am so happy with them. But the true test is in the taste. So let's see what this is all about. And we're primarily also going to see, do you hear that crunch? Listen. That's what you're looking for. And we're also going to see, oh, look at that. Look, that is absolutely fantastic. Now, I'm going to put a little bit of butter on this one. You can look at the bread while I find the butter. And then we're going to have that famous taste test. Okay. Oh, it's melting in so nice. Hear that? Okay. You ready? Here goes. Oh, it's so good. It is absolutely delicious. And I will tell you, there is no difference having used those two flours. No difference at all. So please, please try it. Try it. Let me know how you like it. Let me know if you love it. Let me know if you have variations to it. And this is just the basic. And from this point, what you can do now is whatever your imagination tells you to do. Whatever. Thank you for joining. Leave me comments, leave me messages. Be sure to subscribe, and we will see you on the next video. Happy baking.